Hey there crew, it's Mark from MENWHOBULLET. Thanks for coming to hang out with me today as we set up another week inside of our bullet journal. We are almost at the end of this bullet journal, literally 4 pages left in this entire notebook, and we'll be moving on back to an A5 size one in the new year. This week we're going to have a lot of fun as we're setting this up. I have a really cool weekly overview that I want to do today. We'll also be setting up a section for our priorities using some rub-on transfers this week. I've got some stamps in the forecast as well, and some really cool looking ink that I can't wait to show you in the twist. I also have a cool looking detail and watercolor that I want to try later on today as well as we get things set up. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, we're going to go ahead and talk about how we're going to set up our page. So what we'll be doing up here in the top left hand side of our page is we are going to save a 7x7 square. I'm going to be trying something a little bit different today using some color as well as this really cool white Pitt Artist pen from Faber-Castell. We'll be doing some lettering and then some shadowing across the top for our header for December. We're going to save 7x7, like I said here. We're going to skip 2 squares, and then what we're going to do in our next section here is going to be our weekly overview. So we're going to be following closer to our normal grid spacing. We'll be using this 3-column grid here, 1 open square on the left and the right, and then we've got 10 across here that are connected into 3 columns. We're going to skip another 2 spaces, and then we're just going to split the bottom part of our page here in half, 16x16, and that'll give us this plenty of space for notes and for tasks. Over on the right-hand side of our page, we're going to use that same 7x7 as well as that 3-column spacing here for the top, and what we're going to be putting here are going to be our top 3 priorities for the entire week. We'll be using rub-on transfers in the twist for that. We'll be using the same amount of spacing here too, and then going back into that 3-column grid. So the bottom of this page looks exactly the same, with the top just being space for the header and then our space over here for our priorities. First things first, I'll go ahead and outline all of my spaces that I need for my overviews. We'll be filling out the top and the left and right portions of these boxes, leaving the bottoms open until I lay in my stamp, and then we'll follow up with that later on. For our priority spaces, we'll be filling out the bottom and the left and right of all of these boxes, saving the top for an open space. We'll be using the rub-on transfers for the letters. Even though I'm going to be using different types of stationery today, you can still use your same 1 pen if you want and fill out all of these spaces. You can just create the same boxes that we have here for each of the days of the week. Up here at the top, you can write in 1, 2, and 3 for your main priorities. And even later on, when I work on a geometric part over here with some watercolor, you can do the same outlines if you want, just using your 1 pen and some shading or something like that if you want. As we're getting started, you'll see that I'm just outlining the tops and the left and right side of that weekly overview, leaving space at the bottom where we're going to be using those stamps. If you want, you can go ahead and use your same pen and draw in those squares that you have there. It'll create the similar effect that we'll be doing with the stamps later on. And same thing for the top section where we're doing our priorities. I'm filling out the left and the right and the bottom of those, leaving the tops open for the rub-on transfer numbers I'll be using. If you want, you can use a stencil or even your own handwriting and drawing in numbers 1, 2, and 3 there for yourselves too. One thing I am going to do inside of this part of the video is going to be creating my header here across the top. You can do this for yourself as a simple brush pen. You don't have to go crazy, but I'm going to have a little bit of fun with some of the supplies that we have. The first color that I'm going to be using is going to be this cobalt turquoise brush pen from Faber-Castell. We're going to create a really cool looking organic shape over here, and then we're going to write over that with the letter D using this big old fat Pitt Artist pen. This is a white Pitt Artist pen, so it's really fantastic for drawing on dark paper or over top of other colors. So we'll be using that, and then we'll draw out the rest of the December, just doing some brush lettering with the brush pen. And then I'm going to come back with this really cool brush pen. This is a warm gray color, and we're going to create a little bit of a drop shadow underneath the letters that we're going to do across for this header. If you don't have all of these pens, it's absolutely fine. You can just use a darker color or a lighter color over here for this organic shape, and then use a darker pen over top of it to do the same general type of layout that we're doing here. Now that we have our big organic shape here, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a letter D for December, because that's what we're going to be writing out here. And I'm going to do this in cursive, and I'm just going to go over this twice to get it nice and thick. And you can go over it as many times as you feel like you need to get the desired thickness that you want. Now that I have the D, I'm going to continue this lettering across here, spelling out December. If you don't feel confident with your lettering, what you can do is just draw out this in really big cursive letters, and then you can come back over them with a downstroke and fill in the spaces. I myself even went over those downstrokes again with my brush pen because I want to make sure that they're nice and thick. That way the drop shadows that we're going to do show up really well against the lettering. Now that we let that dry for a moment, I'm going to come back in with this warm gray Pit Artist pen. It's another brush one. The way that I'm going to create this really cool effect is I'm going to draw on the right-hand side of all of my letters, act as if the light source is coming from this top left-hand side. So all of my shadows are going to be on the bottom right-hand side of these letters. One of the reasons I like to use a light gray to begin is you can always go over those light grays a few times to get the desired darkness that you want for your shadows. If you go straight in with a really dark one, you don't always get that luck of having the option of choosing how dark that is from the beginning. So I'll go through the rest of these letters. I'm just going to be filling in the right-hand side of my letters on the outside, and then also lightly on the inside as well. After you've gone on over, go ahead and just take a second look, make sure it looks like you filled in your lines all the way and got the desired drop shadow that you want. This is as far as we're going to go for the minimalist setup part of this. Again, if you want to continue with the minimalist setup, then what you're going to do is you're just going to draw numbers 1, 2, and 3 across the top, and then you're going to put the day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you can choose to have this as a Saturday, Sunday split or just weekend here. We're going to do all of that in the twist real quick, as well as having some fun with some watercolor too as we wrap things up. So let's go ahead and get into it.
How many little stamps are you going to do?
All right, in the twist, we're going to have some fun today. We're going to be using some of these transfer letters. I used these a few weeks ago when I first got these from the dollar store, believe it or not. All you got to do with these is just cut out the letters or the numbers that you want to use. And then in just a moment, I'll show you how you just rub these onto your page and they give a really cool look. This is fantastic if you're not feeling very confident with your lettering or your drawing even. You can get rub-on transfers in a lot of different ways. You can get them as pictures, images, icons, and in this case, letters and numbers. This week, we're also going to be using these really cool frames. This is a vintage frame from Moose Splice. These are some of my favorite stamps. I use these all of the times. Got these from Desk Gems, and I'll link, of course, all of this down in the descriptions for you below. This week, we're actually going to be using this really cool looking shield, and we're going to be setting this up in these squares right here. Inside of these, I can put the days of the week over here for the Saturday, Sunday split. Also, it's very cool looking. I can draw that diagonal and get what I need out of these as well. After we put down our stamp, then if we want to, we can go ahead and connect these lines down here. But if you like it cool and open like this, you don't have to worry about doing anything extra. Let's go ahead and first start with our rub-on transfers here. So I've already marked each one of my spaces here with a small pencil line. That's going to be the center of my space here, and I'm going to be laying them down in this spot here. Unfortunately, they're not all even. I noticed that as I was cutting them out that the 2 gets a little bit bigger, the 3 gets even bigger, but that's totally cool. Just love the way that it looks. I actually just bought this rub-on transfer tool from Desk Gems just a few weeks ago. You do not need this. You can really use anything. I think I used like the blunt end of a pen and that worked out well for me, but I got this just because I have a feeling I'll be using a lot more of these. So what's cool about these rub-on transfers is they kind of act like a temporary tattoo. That's what I call them anyway. You lay them down on the page, and then what you do is you just take your tool, and we're just going to rub on that until it comes off of this plastic sheet and onto the page. It doesn't take a lot, honestly. It just takes a little bit of pressure, and you get a really cool look there. This doesn't feel like a sticker. It honestly feels like I've drawn it right on the page. These come in a lot of different ways, like I mentioned. All of these have a white backing, which help you cut it out of whatever you're using. And then this plastic part goes here. So I'm gonna lay that to align the center of my page, press it down, and then use my tool to really make sure that it adheres to the page. What I also love about these is they're not ink, so I can actually erase the pencil marks right over top of them without worrying about taking anything up. These top 3 priorities will be the most important things that I need to accomplish during this week. I'll take a look at my agenda, I'll take a look at my task and my notes from last week, as well as any other upcoming due dates, and that's where I'll go ahead and prioritize those and put the top 3 here. The rest will go inside of my notes and tasks on the rest of my page. Now that we have our priority section set, let's go ahead and focus next on our weekly overview here. We're going to be using these stamps from the Moo Splice stamp collection. This is called Vintage Frames. I love this. Look at this cool looking shield. We'll be using that across all 6 of these days. The Saturday, Sunday split will go here, and I'll just put a slash through that to split out those dates. This week, we're going to be using this Night Sky from Versa Magic. So we've been using the Versa Fine Ink in black a lot recently. This is a little bit different. They have these little dewdrop colors, so you can choose to pick out a lot of different colors versus the big ink pads. Now, I haven't used this one in a little bit, so we're just gonna do a real quick stamp just to make sure that this is okay. If not, we'll have to switch colors. It's been a minute. It's my own fault. This fell a little bit further back in my stamp drawer, so I want to make sure that it's going to look okay on the page. If not, we're going to pick something else. Hey, that worked pretty good. All right, so that's what we're going to be using. We'll be stamping that down across each one of these days of the week, and then we'll come in just a little bit with a really cool looking ink that we're going to use to lay down the days of the week. And then the last thing we'll do is a really cool looking, I don't know what they call it just yet, with some watercolors, like a little added detail down here, like a little fractal looking design. But let's get these stamps down first. We'll give those a second to dry. A lot of people ask me what I clean my stamps with. I just use a wet, damp paper towel. It's probably not the best thing in the entire world. I should probably use something microfiber, but as I'm working quickly and kind of getting stuff done, I like to use this. Someone told me to use baby wipes, but I don't have those lying around as much as I used to when my kids were small. We've got inky fingers, so that's how you know we're having fun today. So for the days of the week, what I'm going to be doing is using this really cool Midnight Twinkle fountain pen ink. This is from Birmingham Pen Ink. We've been using Birmingham inks a lot recently just because I have so much of it and I really want to make sure I'm using it. And this one's really cool, and I thought it would go really well with the overall look that we have going on today. So you can see all of the really cool sparkle that's in the bottom of this. So we're just going to shake up our ink bottle a little bit. We're going to be using our glass dip pen today just to get that nice fine point inside of here. I have been thinking about refilling another one of my fountain pens for our weekly plan with me's. I don't always carry the fountain pens along with me, but I have enough of them that I feel like maybe I should just start to use them a little bit more for what we do inside of these plan with me's, but we'll look into that in just a little bit. Right now, we're just going to be focused on getting this really cool ink inside of here. We're just going to be focused on getting this cool ink inside of each one of our days of the week. Just to give you a little sneak peek of what this ink looks like, it's really cool. It's got a really cool dark color to it. And then as you're writing with it, you'll start to see a little bit of that sparkle come out. As always mentioned, of course, you're not always going to have the same exact supplies that I have here to do this. So if you don't have a special type of ink, just use your regular pen. If you don't have a stamp like this, you can use a circle tracer if you want to even, or draw out a square on here and get a very cool look. It's completely up to you what you do. Just make sure that you don't go out and go crazy on supplies just for this. If you're going to use ink, let's make sure you're using it for other things. I'm trying to be more mindful for myself even this year to use what I have versus going and buying more. We'll see how well that works. Now that we have that, just to create something a little bit different here, I wanted to try this. I thought of this idea earlier today, is what I want to do is I want to connect the corners of this. And I'm going to use pencil for this, the corners down to the corner of my shield. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, connecting them to my lines all the way across. And then I'm going to use these as guides to create like a neat looking kind of like fractal looking deal. This is really kind of going above and beyond this week. So if you're just like, nah, bro, you're going too far for me now. I understand. My feelings will not be hurt. But I had this idea earlier when I was working, and I just thought this could look kind of cool on here. Hopefully you can start to see where this like fractal thing is going to come into play. All right, so we have that. So next thing that I need is going to be some water. So I have some water here I'll be using with my watercolor. My watercolor of choice today is going to be one of my favorite palettes. This is from Mercury to Saturn. This is from Peppercorn Arts. It's one of my favorites, as you can tell, because I've used it. Even though it doesn't look like it's been used a lot, I use this one a lot. And I also love the colors, so you can see that they have a really cool shimmer to them. And inside of here, we have a really cool cyan color as well as a brilliant blue. So we're going to be using these together to create these really cool looking fractal pieces here. You can take any type of fine brush that you're going to use. And what we're going to do is we are going to just put down some water on top of these. They just need like a hot second just to kind of like soak in a little bit to be ready for the amazingness that we're going to be doing. Let's go ahead and mix this in. I'm not looking for like heavy pigment. I actually would prefer this to be a little bit more wet. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put down the watercolor here. And I've been thinking about like how I want to connect these. So I think what I'm going to do is just go every other. So this will leave the big one, and then I'll connect. Right, 1, 2, here. All right, I think this will work itself out. So I'm hoping it'll work itself out. Yes, we'll skip this little one, and then we'll do this big one. If you're curious about how to use or want to know more about using watercolor in your bullet journal, I actually have a video coming out in just a few weeks that's going to go over it. We're going to talk about 5 different ways that you can use watercolor in your bullet journal. Okay, so we've gone through with the brilliant blue first. So now I'm going to pick up the color from this cyan. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to watercolor over any section that we haven't done just yet. Okay, so here's where we landed for right now. So looks super shiny, love that. That looks super neat. And it gives off a little bit of this fractal look. Now what I want to do is I'm just gonna create just some real quick freehand triangles from here. Basically switching off the colors that were above it. I could have drawn these in, but I didn't really want to. I just wanted to kind of hit it free like this. So just a little extra fun. This is definitely not something that you had to, or maybe even want to include inside of your journal this week, but I wanted to take it an extra level. I just felt like the colors up here that we're using, how we went about this, looking pretty good. I have a little bit of cleanup that I need to do around the edges. Definitely somewhere I smeared some of my ink a little bit. We're gonna let the watercolor dry, and then what I'll be doing is coming in and filling in the rest of my week. As I mentioned, we've got the whole area up here will be my top 3 priorities that I need to accomplish this week. This will be my daily overview. These are kind of top level events, major tasks or events that are happening each day. And then this entire bottom section here will be just for notes and tasks and kind of my daily logging as I go on. All of the products that I used here will be down in the descriptions for you below. So if you are interested in grabbing any of these, if you want to, they'll be down there for you. Hopefully will be available. Some of these I've had for a while. Something like the watercolor, for instance, isn't always available over on Peppercorn Arts, but when it is, you definitely want to grab it. If you're interested in checking out more bullet journal weekly ideas, got an entire playlist for you that you can check out. We've got 33 other episodes that you can go back and watch of this series from this year. So definitely go check them out. As always, thanks for hanging out, crew, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.